Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Guild show. The Tabletop Gaming Guild show is all about the memories and experiences that playing board games with friends and family can create. On this episode, we're going to have a lively discussion about components. Basically, component quality, what we think about in the games, too many components, all the stuff about components. But before we start that, we're going to talk about what we've been playing. We'll go ahead and throw Nathan under the bus because he's the one I can see. So, Nathan, what have you been playing?
I don't think there's going to be a big surprise on this. I've been playing Oathsworn. Actually, it's kind of evolving a little bit. It's every chapter's a little bit different. They're done pretty good at like changing things up as you go. Usually, like the story mode is kind of the same, but the encounters where they really change it up. But in the last couple of chapters, they kind of been changing up the story mode too. So I'm actually enjoying it quite a bit. It's not like I wouldn't even consider it a dungeon crawl. And if I was, this wouldn't be the first one I'd choose. But as a story, this is really a boss battle is what this is with like a story element
based boss battle.
Yeah, the story mode is really just to get you the resources to go into the encounter. And it's like how well you do in that determines what you get in the encounter. And it's really just all about that one boss battle. And each boss is very unique.
How many chapters are in the base game?
21.
21. You're on chapter 8 or 9 or something?
I am up to chapter 11 now.
Oh, chapter 11. So you got a little ways to go. So how long are the chapters taking you on average, do you think?
Well, the story mode, between the story mode and the encounter, it's probably about 2 hours.
Okay. So it's not really replayable after you're done. So you're probably looking at getting rid of it after you're done.
Well,
so, yeah.
Yes, it is replayable.
No!
In fact, if you don't really care for the story, which that's fine, you can always go in and there's a little thing in the encounter book to say, okay, you want to skip straight to the encounter. This is what you need, and this is what little starting bonuses you should get, or what.
Okay, so you can just do straight up scenario based. Like if you want to go fight the weird rat thing with rats on its back, go for it.
Right.
Okay. That's cool. I'm looking forward to getting more on your reports on what your overall impression is when you finish, because that's a big investment of time at 2.5 hours per chapter and 21 chapters in the base game. So you definitely already got your money's worth.
Right. And I'm really excited to see like the final boss, because that is a pretty big, it looks like it's going to be a pretty big mini. It's a big box.
Can't be as big as the Cthulhu mini. Interesting story, which we'll get into the components in a little bit, but they're redoing a campaign. Get the baby. We'll talk about that more later.
And Oathsworn is going to go back here on Kickstarter too. So if you missed it in the first round, you don't have to steal Nathan's copy, James.
Yeah, I have one big Kickstarter I can do. So I have one I can do a year, and Oathsworn was going to be it. I was super excited, and then Essen.
I'm sorry I had to show you that.
And then Essen. All right. Anyway, So next person to throw under the bus will be Dan, because he looked up. What have you been playing, Dan?
So let's see. What have I been playing? The last couple weeks, we got Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia, back to the table.
With the expansion or without?
No, I just own the base game.
Okay.
So, interestingly enough, the expansion changes. My understanding is the expansion changes the game experience significantly, because it completely replaces the market tiles, and it completely replaces the deck of recruit cards.
Yes, it does those
which is pretty significant, I think, because the interaction of those two things is like one of the ways in which you can put down stars. And that's, of course, the goal of the game. For those of you who aren't intimately familiar with it, is that you have 10 stars and you've got to deploy them to areas on the board through the various means. This particular play went relatively well. Ken dumped his last star before I dumped mine, but I only had one left. And, it was more than a turn or two for me to get rid of my last star. So it wasn't like super close, but it was close enough.
Yeah, I play that game a lot, and I found that a lot of times, because it's a race style game, you're just trying to get all those stars out. Like a lot of the Stonemaier games are, like Scythe. But Scythe is a little different. You have an end scoring portion too. But all my games of Euphoria have been very close. So yeah. I do think it's balanced very well.
We also had a very interesting game of Gaia Project within the last 2 to 3 weeks. So this is like the third or fourth time we've sat down to this game, and this is, congratulations, the first time I felt like I actually built a reasonable Stealth Empire within the context of the game arc. So in all my previous plays of this game, I always felt like I wanted to do more, put more things on the table, go up more tech tracks, etc., etc. Just like do more in the game. There's a lot to do in the game, honestly. You can't do everything, but like this is the first time where we had a play where I was like, you know what, I think that's enough. So that's a good sign. It tells me that I may be progressing, maybe just a little bit.
Do you like that one better than the original version?
The Gaia Project is the only version I've played.
Oh, okay. Nathan, have you played both?
I've only played Terra Mystica.
Well, now they're combining Terra Mystica and Gaia Project into a new experience, which the title escapes me, but it's coming out this year. It's like Terra something. Yeah, so they're combining the two. It's going to have the Terra Mystica. Let's see. It looks like it's going to have the Terra Mystica fantasy theme, but have the Gaia like changes in it. But we'll see.
I might give that a try then, because Terra Mystica I was never really a fan of, but I really liked Gaia Project in comparison.
Well, that same oh, you did like Gaia Project? Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So then you'll might like it. So
yeah, I'll give it a try at least. We'll see.
What did you like for Gaia Project over Terra Mystica?
I think it's a lot of like the board mechanics.
Okay.
I think I can't.
Are you
remember...
not flipping places like you are in Terra Mystica and terraforming them?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. What do you call it? When you go to colonize a planet, you sort of have to pay various resources to make sure you have enough range to get there from a currently occupied space that you have. And then based on the color of the planet you're trying to colonize, you pay a certain amount of resources based on your like terraforming technology to put your mine on the planet.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like that. Plus, also the pool works a little bit differently from what I remember. It's been a long time since I played Gaia Project.
The magic pool thing where you.
Yeah, okay. I remember that worked a little bit different, and like some of the, at least it felt like it. I don't know. I mean, I know everything felt like it congealed a lot better for me in Gaia Project versus.
Okay. You guys are calling it magic, and I'm like, what the heck is this thing?
Gaia
Project, it's the energy cycle.
Energy, yeah.
Right.
In Terra Mystica, it was the magic cycle thing.
Okay.
In Gaia Project,
it's an extra cycle. Like almost bonus resource. Every like two to three turns, you can blow a couple extra energy to pull off something cool. Basically.
I don't know. Yeah. I haven't played either. So.
And by the way, the new one's called Terra Nova.
Terra Nova. Okay. There you go. It has a supernova in it and Latin Earth in it. So what could go wrong? All right. So did you have any other games, Dan?
No, those are the only two I'm going to mention.
Those are two strong games. That's good. That's really cool.
All right. No, I lied.
Oh, do you have one more? Okay.
Yeah, no, I have one more.
All right,
I had some time off, I think last week, and we got Fortune and Glory to the table, which is something that doesn't happen very often because it's a big game. It's absolutely huge. So, Fortune and Glory is Indiana Jones in the box. It was amazing. We fought against the mobs. We had some really rough times in the first half of the game when Ken got KO'd like 3 times in a row, but we actually managed to pull it out in the second half, more or less, off of like one successful like HQ raid. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. This may show up when we talk about components because there's a lot of stuff in this box.
I don't know how Fortune and Glory is such a fun game. where it's like it's really like a mess of a game. Like
It's an absolute mess. I don't understand it either.
It's like a colossal mess, but somehow it meshes together into a fun experience, which is just crazy. But my question is, did you use the fan variant rules on it to mitigate some of the dice rolling for Fortune and Glory?
So we just used our normal selection of alternate rules that we use here at the house. So
Yeah,
like that basically just boils down to you roll once at the beginning of the turn for just initiative, gaining an event card on 1 and 2. You don't roll for movement, you just get an automatic 4.
Yeah.
That's pretty standard. A lot of people use that one. And then one that we sort of implemented on our own was villains when they go out to adventure for artifacts as well. On a 1, they take damage. They because they're going through risks and challenges as well, thematically. If they get KO'd or delayed by the players, they'll spend a full turn in the villain HQ, at which point they fully heal. But if they retrieve an artifact, they'll immediately deploy the next turn. So when that happens, we don't heal them, which provides opportunities for us to snipe them in combat.
Yeah, there's a lot to that game. And they had a couple. I'm pretty sure they had at least one expansion for it, didn't they?
Yeah, there's been 2 so far, and plus a small booster pack thing sized one called Sands of Cairo, and I've got all of that.
That's cool. We had to play it again. We played on Tabletop Simulator. I want to play it for real. Yeah, you know how good.
Yeah, getting that box out of the house is going to be
That's true. All right, so next person would be John. What have you been?
All right. One game I can't remember the name of. That was pretty decent, but the ones I can remember the name of, played John Company 2nd edition.
Okay.
Which is basically you're taking the role of family, and you're in the East India Company.
Ooh.
And so you're basically fighting for control and political influence. And you're trying to install your family members into positions of importance and power within the company. And so the entire game, you have, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it at all, but it's a lot smoother this time around.
Is it like a re-implementation of it?
Yeah, it's like the 2nd edition. Like the first one, I guess, talking to some of the people who had played the 1st edition said that they felt like the streamlined rules really helped it out. But yeah, like you install, someone's the chairman of the board, and you have, you're trying to put more people onto the board, while somebody else might be putting more people into the military. And there's all the different aspects. One person is the prime minister, and has yeah, and that can also change. And you can also, if you vote against, at the end of every round, there's a voting phase that the prime minister has. I mean, there's a lot of checks and balances.
So if they vote against them, I could kill them.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh,
yes,
that's even better.
In a way. In that, basically, if a vote doesn't whoever is the chancellor gets to go and pick through different, votes. And if their vote doesn't go through, then they lose it. And whoever is the opposition leader, which is ever the person who voted the most votes against the prime minister. I guess it's English, so I guess prime minister instead of a chancellor or whatever. But they become the new prime minister.
Okay.
So yeah, so there's kind of that whole element to it. Yeah, I was basically running the president, and there's rules against nepotism, unless everybody who's there who is eligible to get the position are okay with nepotism, which most people aren't going to be. But you have these favors you could trade for each other too, along with hey, if you do this specific thing, I'll give you this card that says I'm okay with nepotism this turn.
I like it.
There's a lot of that going on. And you also don't control when your people retire out of their positions.
Okay.
Which is also the other kind of interesting mechanic. because each of the main jobs is stressful, and so every turn you're rolling a die to find out if they just have too much and they're retiring. And then when they retire, you can score points off them. You might not have been ready for them to retire, so you have to set yourself up to be ready and capitalize when they finally go to the retirement home. You can then put them in the fancier house and get more points. But those points also give you taxes every turn too, upkeep costs. So yeah, there's kind of like a whole thing to it. And you could also get just totally screw up your job so bad enough they fire you, you don't even go into retirement.
You're just fired.
You're just fired. That's happened to a few of them.
You're like, Smitty, you're out of the will.
That really does sound like a good idea. Maybe the podcast should have a vote to see if they think nepotism's okay, and say, oh, let's go for nepotism, and James can give me first choice on every game that comes in.
What? Moving on. Evan, what have you been playing? Oh no, John, did you have any other ones?
Yeah, I had a couple other ones. I played mainly on Board Game Arena, but it was like Marco Polo 2.
Marco Polo 2. Is it the same game or did they change it up? Because I played Marco Polo, but I didn't play Marco Polo 2.
Yeah, they changed it up quite a bit. So like the board's completely different.
Okay.
All the powers are different, for all the traders. Some of the powers that were in the first game are almost kind of baseline available in the second game.
Okay.
Like they changed movement completely. There's 3 places for movement, for depending upon how far you want to move. And if you do the third action on movement, you kind of get the one ability where you get to drop 2 houses on the path.
Okay.
You get that power as part of the movement, but you have to spend like 3 6s to do it, kind of thing, or at least 3 dice to do that one.
Oh, they don't have to be 6s?
No, they don't have to be 6s, but if you want to do max movement, yeah. The other thing that's also really cool with it is every location feels worthwhile to go to. Because how like a lot of them you're like, I don't really want to bother going there.
Yeah, that happens a lot on that one.
There's actually like a set collection for every location you go to. So going to more different locations gets you more points at the end of the game. So you kind of want, that's a lot of every place now is a viable place to go to because, only like 2 locations will share a specific flag and you want to try and get up to 10 flags. So that one's definitely really cool. I like it. Like Marco Polo, I was always like, it's decent, I'll play it. But Marco Polo 2, I like a lot more. And I would think about, buying that one. Everything else is a little bit lighter, like Break the Code. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one.
No, I haven't played Break the Code. Is that like a one-time game or something like that?
No, it's kind of like I guess deduction game. Basically every person's dealt numbers of 2 different colors, or 3 different colors if you include the 5s, and numbers 0 through 9.
Okay.
So you have a handful of cards that aren't in the password that you're all trying to crack, and you have these different questions that you get dealt to you every turn that you can ask everyone else, like what's the sum of all your white cards, or you have that are in sequential order in your set of 5, and things like that. And you can kind of try and deduce what cards are there, that have been removed from the game.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it doesn't take too long to play. But yeah. Then I guess Next Station London, which is just a roll and write that I really liked. Because everything is definitely unique for every time you play it, for every player. Because I like a lot of times you're doing a roll and write, you have a lot of people just doing the same action every time because there's just based off of what was rolled. With this one, it's less a roll and write and more of a draw and write. There's like a deck of cards, and so you draw the card, and every person is playing one of the 4 different train colors. So one person's doing the purple, one's doing the green. So you're not doing the same train stations. So you're automatically already different from the first move. And it's just kind of trying to figure out how to optimize, what the different scoring options there are. And and not backing yourself into a corner, which I did the first time I ever played it.
Sounds like how I would play it too. All right, so that sounds really cool. And that's a good, solid lineup of games. I've actually played none of them, so that's really cool. How about you, Evan? What have you been playing?
I have a couple I got to the table over the last 2 weeks or so. I'm only going to talk about. I think I'll just talk about one. So I got a couple plays of Vault Wars in, which I think our review just went live today or yesterday for it. So it's a 3 to 5 player game. You're a adventurer that is starting out, and you need to acquire some new equipment and stuff to start your adventuring career. And the easiest way to do that is there is an auction going at the storage lockers in the town of adventurers that never made it home. So if you've ever seen Storage Wars and slap a RPG kind of feel on top of it, is basically that. You're bidding on lockers of loot. Some of the information is public, some of it is hidden to you, and some of it is completely hidden. So you have to navigate buying the correct lockers to maximize the most stuff for yourself, figuring out what am I keeping, what am I selling for more gold, and then at the end trying to get the most victory points out of what you got. For hidden information bidding kind of game, it actually is pretty well. It does it really well, so I really enjoyed that.
I played Vault Wars and I actually got rid of it mainly because, while I do enjoy the game, I also have Bargain Quest, which feels almost like the same game, but I just like Bargain Quest slightly more.
Yeah, I've only ever played Vault Wars, and I liked it a lot. Yeah, Bargain Quest. Supposedly, I'm getting a copy in the mail, so we'll see. I'm gonna probably end up to Evan. So for me, I played a couple games last week. So not a whole lot. One of them is a continuing saga, which is Pandemic Legacy Season 0, which we've been playing for like half a year, or we're halfway through it. So we're getting ready to start part 2 of it. And I was getting a little burned out with Pandemic. I played it so much, and I played so many iterations of it. And Pandemic Season 0 is enough of different mechanics than regular Pandemic. I mean, you're still flipping, and this time you're adding out agents, and you have incident tokens that come out. But in the beginning, not giving anything away, those don't like spread out to different areas. You have a different mechanic you use, where you flip the bottom card and read what happens there instead. Things might change throughout the game. Who knows? It's a Pandemic, but I have been enjoying it, and I thought I was done with Pandemic, and apparently it will keep on going forever and ever and ever and ever. Oh, and ever. So
sounds like a Sisyphean nightmare there.
Pretty much. I mean, they keep coming out with Pandemic anything. You have it. I do want to try the Pandemic WoW edition because they said it's different mechanically, and I also want to try the Cthulhu version of Pandemic too, because it was supposed to be a little different. We'll see.
I like the fact that there's so many pandemics now that they don't even call the new versions of pandemics. They completely don't even mention that.
Yeah. Well, that's that. The other one was Cult of the Deep, which is one of the only 2 social deduction games that I actually like that have ever been made. All the other ones I do not like. I haven't paid them yet. I probably won't like them. But this one isn't really a social deduction game so much as just basically you having to deduce yourself based on the actions, which are going to be driven by what character they have throughout the game. So you don't have to do werewolf style where I think you're the mayor. And Cult of the Deep, based on what people are doing, there's interwoven win conditions. So you're either going to be a cultist, a high priest, or a repentant heretic, or I think it's heretic, repentant, cultist, or whatever. And those all have to do specific things in the game to win. So you're going to know when people are starting to punch the high priest in the face that they're going to be a cultist. So it's just a little bit of a bluffing game beforehand, because you want to build up before you like throw your hand out there. And there's a lot of different things you can do. But basically, it's like a Yahtzee style mechanic for rolling for your action points, basically, that you get to spend for different things. And you do up to 3 times. You have 5 dice. And you can spend them to regain your health, damage someone else, trying to finish a ritual, or heal yourself up a little bit if they match the symbol on your card. And you can get cool powers in there. And the other really cool thing about this game is if you're killed, the game's could be over immediately if a win condition's met. But if not, like if you're cultist and die and not all the cultists are dead, you get to become a wraith. And you can still interact with the game, which is really cool. So no one's sitting out in the game. So it's Cthulhu themed. It's fun. I like to play it with you guys. I think you guys will like it. It plays up to 8 players, so it has a high player count too. A minimal of 4, which makes sense for the game. The other game that I played is, I'm a sucker for roll and writes. This is actually a flip and write, but I do have a soft spot for them, and this one's really good. It's called Delicious by Pencil First Games. In Delicious, you have a garden, and you have like a fruit platter, and you have 6 different beds, and 3 of the beds are in the top row, and 3 of the beds in the bottom row. And you have a fruit platter that you're trying to fill out. And each turn, 2 cards flip. One's for the top row, one's for the bottom row, and then they either have a fruit on it or a tool. And you have 12 rounds, and you have limited selections of each type, which equal 12. So I have 2 selections where I can pick both and do them and put them either, and I can switch whether they're on the top and the bottom. I have, I think, 3 selections where I can pick both, but they have to stay where they're at. I have the next largest selection number for, I can pick one, but I can put it on either top or bottom. And then I have the highest number of times I can select where I pick one and I place it where it belongs, like either on the top or the bottom. And you're trying to balance all these out and not, score each of these strategically, which they have to go top down, and you can't jump anywhere. So there's a lot of things you have to think about. Some of them have to be the same type of vegetable. Some of them have to be different types of vegetables. Fruit platter, you can put anything you want in there as long as they match the symbol, but it can be any fruit. But you're trying to get either a column or row of completely different fruits or the same. So there's a lot of things and a lot of strategies that you can put in this game that seems very simple. And even though it's random what card flips, everyone uses the same cards. So in that aspect, it's not a very random game. It's whoever implemented the best strategy. And since there's so many in the game that you can do, and so many bonuses and stuff that you can go for and things you can change, no 2-person scores are the same. So I really like that game. It also goes from 1 to 100. It's one of those type of games, just because there's really no actual player limit. But I'm pretty sure if you had 100 people and you had 2 cards on the table, it's going to take a while because not everyone can see the cards unless you put it on a big screen or something. But those are the games I played. Hopefully I get some more games to the table this week. But without further ado, we should go into our discussion about components. So the question would be, which of the myriad of component topics that we could have, like, what do we think about bad components? What do you think about great components? What do you think about too many components? What is the first one you guys might want to talk about?
I think we should contextualize it by talking about where components started from, and like the early components, such as the ubiquitous cube, and how the
I think I hear a volunteer that is going to be talking about this. Continue, dear sir.
So, El Grande is a good example of that. It's like, El Grande comes from a period where, in particular, Euro games didn't have to be that attractive. they didn't even try most of the time, to be honest. And that's definitely changed. You've seen far fewer cubes in in the more recent games, but it was the idea that cube can represent anything. Yeah, in Lords of Waterdeep, it could be a warrior or a cleric, and El Grande is just fighters, or it could be diseases and pandemic. I mean, it's just like one component that, while it's not very thematic, can represent just about anything.
I think it's a fair point talking about the cube.
Chits.
We'll talk about chits here in a little bit, but talk about the cube. When most people think about the component for a board game, I think a lot of people either are drawn to meeples or dice, and I think cube is almost a better draw, because within the last, I would say, 7-ish years, that's where the line is drawn now for, do I have a basic retail copy of a game, or do I have the fancified version of the game? And really the line is whatever resource or whatever, is it just a cube? And that's kind of how you can tell. And I think using that as almost the baseline kind of makes the cube the important thing for games.
I mean, you also had dice that acted. Some games use dice as the cubes for the game. Like, you will place them as workers. Like we were talking about Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia. You will actually use the dice that you roll as workers you place out on the board. So there's technically a cube also. So some of the games have neat ways of...
Euphoria has, wooden bits for the resources, and they're not cubes. True. They're shaped to be to look like whatever they are. So that's like, it's just that little bit above cube there.
Yeah. And some of my fondest games, almost every Euro ever, is built on cubes. In Lords of Waterdeep, you have adventurers, you have clerics. They're just cubes. Like white cubes, you can click purple cubes, you can click black cubes. Without them being shaped like that, or I can't like thematically think of them as actual adventurers. I think of them as a resource I collected to chuck at this quest.
Which is appropriate because you're a Lord of Waterdeep. What more is the adventurers to you than just a resource you chuck at whatever you want to chuck them at?
Very true. Very true.
Even if we go beyond just cubes, so I'm thinking of like a game like Concordia. So if you think of the components in Concordia, it's like cardboard chits are the money, wooden bits are the resources, wooden pieces are the player pieces, like the colonists and the houses. And there's like a piece of stiff cardboard for the player board, and the cards, right, that you play to perform your actions. And I think that pretty much sums up all the components that are in Concordia. But like Concordia is another example of a really simply produced game that remains 100% excellent. And like, could the resources be just colored cubes? Yes. Do I prefer them not being colored cubes and being shaped wooden bits? Yes.
Yeah, or we can get into so you got cubes, and you can offload that onto like a player aid or whatnot for what the cubes mean and stuff. But what if you have a game where they make the tiniest pieces of square cardboard possible and put the smallest print thing on there, which is fine when you're like 12 and 16 and you got eyes of a hawk. But as you get older and you have chits all over this table of this monotone hexagonal map, with they get to be a little much. And I do love me my GMT games, but what do you guys think of those little war chits that might have a little picture on them but have super small text all over the place? And I've seen some pretty bad ones that have like walls of numbers on them, but it's still the same size, and they're like little 1-inch cubes.
So
I know this is fighting for Evan. He's going to be fighting now.
So I don't mind chits. Really, because it all depends on. I don't give a shit about the chits. Chits itself, So when you get into a lot of the war-based games, once you learn and you get into the games more, they use NATO symbolization for unit configurations. So, like, an infantry always has this symbol, a tank always has this symbol, mechanized infantry is always this symbol. Once you learn that symbol, um, looking at the chits is no big deal at that point, because 90% of everything else that's on there is almost always just for setup. So, your unit, corps, battalion, whatever, it all depends on what level, strategic level you're playing at, what the breakdowns are going to be. Most of that, it really is just for setup, for historical stuff. So I never really mind that, because the biggest thing is, what is my unit type? So if I learn the symbolism onto it, then I'm good with that. And then usually it's an attack and a defense and a movement value, or the three other things on there. And they put those numbers kind of large onto it, so it's not too bad.
Okay.
So that's why I've never really had a problem with chits. Now, going with the tiniest cardboard pieces with the smallest print, insert your Fantasy Flight game here.
Okay, I'm editing it out. Editing it out.
No, I love
no. What?
I love Fantasy Flight games. I really do. And they're great games.
This is like shots fired.
They just have this thing about cardboard tiny pieces, and I don't know what it is. And sometimes they are just a little bit too small for what they're doing. That's my personal beef with most Fantasy Flight games.
Are you meaning like the little cards?
Sometimes it's little cards. Sometimes it's just a lot of the cardboard pieces are just like, I'm going to have this, small token to represent, that I have a target lock for this, and the chit is like this big.
Okay, yeah, like X-Wing has those little tiny pieces, and not Rune. I think it might be Rune Quest. Maybe it has the tiny cards, and it has like little tiny blood tokens and all sorts of stuff. And they came out with a game that I really, really liked, and I keep forgetting the name of it, but it originally wasn't a Tiernoth game. It was originally a Warhammer game, where it was scenario based, and you had your card decks and you built up your players throughout the game. And then they made a Tiernoth version, and there was a ton of little cardboard like status tokens and stuff in the game. But I will think of it before the end of it, but it's a really, really good, underrated card game that was super well designed. I don't know why they just didn't push it or publish it or advertise it, but it was a really good game.
To make James feel better, like, I do love Fantasy Flight games, and they're really, really well done.
Oh no, you're already dead to me. Dead.
It's
dead to me.
Well, if that's the case, I voted no confidence to James.
So go ahead, continue this.
I'll
heresy
second
that you're talking about. Let's do that.
I think if they just take a general look at the components and realize that we don't have to make a tiny cardboard piece, I think it wouldn't just be a small step forward. I think it would be a larger step forward for them.
Yeah, except for okay, so I'm going to do the devil's advocate for it, and we can get into it can segue into a different topic that may or may not be great, but a lot of that has to do with lowering the cost of the game. That's why the big GMT games have all those chits, because that's cheap to print. It costs money to print miniatures. It costs money to do all these things. So that goes for you get the game experience that you have with the cardboard. Okay, so that's the same game experience potentially as you would have if they made everything a miniature. Now, you can make arguments, which are true, that immersion can be better with having the miniatures and having everything look how it does in your mind's eye. But the question is, at what point is it just too far? At what point you're just like, I am fine with the couple cardboard components we have in this. I don't need to deluxeify them. Or are you all in? Like, a good example is behind me, Eric M. Lang. And almost every single one of his games. Ankh is like the Kickstarter version of Ankh. Everything was turned into plastic. There was no cardboard. Everything was plastic. And they did such a good job with it too. Like the little, they even like the little tokens you have for using on your board and stuff. There's all little plastic circles now, and there's hundreds of them for each player color. They fit perfectly in the pyramids and the other monuments and the obelisk and stuff. So they work out really nice, and you can see them from far away. So that's great. But let's say, I'm just making up a number. Let's say the non-Kickstarter version of Ankh, which has the cardboard, is $70. And if you want the Kickstarter version and you back the Kickstarter version plus shipping, you're getting into the $150, $160 range. So is it worth that immersion to you personally? You feel you need to get that Kickstarter with all those really cool upgraded components? Or are you fine with having those little itty bitty cardboard bits if you can afford in that game and purchase more games and have more of a collection of different types of games? We'll start with you, Evan. What do you think of that?
I'm an all-in kind of person when it comes to the
Yes,
games.
you definitely are. And I get jealous too, because what is that, Wonderland Wars? And you're like, I got the deluxe edition.
Well,
I'm like,
that's the one that I was going to talk
I
about.
have the deluxe edition.
Well, I'm actually going to talk about the two of them. That's going to be the second one I'm going to talk about. So the first one I'm going to talk about is why is it not coming to me? Champions of Midgar. So I absolutely love Champions of Midgar. Great game. When you have the base game, all your resources are cubes. When you get the upgrades to it, they're shaped wooden pieces. So and you get a bunch of other stuff with that too. For me, I've always had a hard time when I'm looking at my resources if it's just a colored wooden cube. The red ones are supposed to be meat or food. Brown are supposed to be wood. But when I'm looking at it, I don't see meat or food. I see red and brown. So I kind of lose my immersion when I'm playing that game if I don't have, that actual resource. So for me, going that extra step is absolutely, key in order for me to enjoy it that little bit more. Now, Wonderland Wars is another one that I'm going to talk about. Big, super hot game that came out right now, and it's a back builder game. As you're playing different people in Alice in Wonderland, and you're building an army to have combat into the second part of the game. In the back builder portion of it, I think it's 255 cardboard coins that you can use to build your bags with.
So many.
The deluxe, if you did not grab the deluxe version on Kickstarter, which I think on Kickstarter was like $160, secondhand market, they were going for like $300 because they went from cardboard to this. I can't remember if it's plastic or if it's like actual like clay chips, but they took that step into it. And from what I read and hear, and from what I've seen, the issue that people have with the cardboard is because of how you punch it out and how you have to repeatedly handle the cardboard. It wears so fast and your game will degrade so quickly. So is it worth it to step up for the immersion because you're going to have this really cool, coin? Yeah. But also for the longevity, because you are paying a lot of money for even the base game. It is worth it to do that because now I can multiply my plays who knows how many times because we're now saving it. And people found different ways to save the cardboard. Just start putting them in I think it's 25 millimeter coin
those work
things
really, really well. That's what I was going to get as a good hack.
Mm-hmm. And how that'll work, but some people just don't want to sit there and after punching that many coins out, they want to then put them into these slots too. So I see that. But yeah, absolutely for me, like going that extra little bit to get the upgraded stuff, it's absolutely worth it because I think the immersion into the game just turns out to be so much better because you have what you're looking for and you have these upgraded components. They are just fantastic. I think it just makes the game better.
Okay. So I want to hear Dan's opinion on this. What do you feel? Are you really an all-in person where you need to like? Do you feel bad if you have the non-special edition version of the game and like, I really need to get that instead?
Well, first of all, I'm a friendly local retailer, so
Right. Get the special
oftentimes
edition
the
all the time.
non-special edition of the game is more accessible to me because of that.
Oh yes, that's true.
But that aside, I am of the personality slash philosophy that I don't need overproduced games.
Okay.
I don't look a lot on Kickstarter anyways, but like my understanding of the nature of Kickstarter is that there are a lot of games on Kickstarter that are sort of overproduce themselves just to have some blingy thing for that platform. I play a lot of card games, even in board game form. So oftentimes I'm looking more for the play experience than the component experience. Like 51st State doesn't include a heck of a lot of components. There's cardboard chits, wooden bits, and a deck of cards, and that's about it. And it's amazing. It's amazing. But like I won't shy away from a game just because it has miniatures. I don't have too many of those. For example, I think Nexus Ops, I think, is one of the few that I've got over there. And like there's a couple games in my collections that where the game box is physically packed to capacity because of the amount of stuff that came with the game. So like, let's see, Dinosaur Island is packed to capacity. I don't have any expansions for Dinosaur Island. That's just the base game experience that's in that box. But like, there's nothing else that can fit in that box. Not even possible. And like Arkham Horror, the 3rd edition is what I've got. I do have one expansion for that box for that game, but like at this point, I don't want to add any more because one, it's sort of incredibly difficult anyways. Don't really need more content that's even more difficult. And two, like it would be increasingly difficult to put more cards into the various containers that I have cards in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get into what we feel about the definition of overproduced in a minute. I thought that was an important topic there. But before we do that, John, what do you think? I'm skipping Nathan because he looked up.
I am conflicted. I feel like there's a good balance somewhere in there. Thing is, though, I have a hard time justifying getting the blinged out, the upgraded components until I've played the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for like Terraforming Mars, for instance, the base game is fine. I guess then it starts kind of getting to where, I guess how much is also even just post-market, overproduction going there with people 3D printed, pieces and everything. But for me, it was kind of, getting the insert and everything else was then it's like, I really like the game. I would like to get some, nicer components for it because I really enjoyed it. Or, but then I have gone it all in on some of them. Hero Quest, for instance, I did go for Mythic, but that's because, that had like an importance to me. Like I played it when I was a kid. So of course I want all those expansions that I heard about and never got a chance to play. Hell yeah, I'm in. Give me all that fun stuff. So yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I have to I've at least played the game once and, decide, hey, do I want to make that investment? Because you know what, it is an investment. It's like, this is money that I could have directed to getting another game or, I don't know, getting pizza delivered, this night instead, or but yeah, that's where I'm at with that is I just need to actually see it and I need to have the game justified. It's very infrequently that I'm just going to want to jump straight into it and get at the upgraded tiers. every now and then it happens, but that's usually because I'm like, maybe I played the demo at, a convention. Like if I at least get a chance to have played it, then I'm all in.
Yeah, for all the talk I'm the same way. Normally when I go to Kickstarter, I'm all excited. Then I read about it, I'm like, and then I talk myself out of it. I'm like, especially when I scroll down and I see the shipping now, I'm like,
Yeah.
what? But a different topic that has to do with what you're talking about. We'll go over that in a second. I just want to do Nathan, and then we're going to go over what we think is overproduced, and that's going to get into that topic.
Well, I'm probably going to sidetrack you a little bit more before we get to that.
That's fine. What do you think?
Well, first of all, for me, yeah, I'm getting to that point where it's starting to be like, okay, do I really want to, especially with the shipping cost, do I really want to back this anymore? It's like it's getting a little bit too expensive, but I'm also at the point where my collection's big enough, I don't have to buy many games, so I would rather, pay more for a good quality game with good quality components. But it does also make me feel bad for people just getting into the hobby, trying to build a nice collection they can be proud of, and then having to spend all this money for these really expensive games with not being fully invested in the hobby yet. But I also wanted to talk about like why we think these trends are happening, why these changes are happening. And
we'll get there.
Oh, okay.
We'll get there. So yeah, basically,
come back to that.
You're on the camp of I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get the best version of that game, so I have the best representation of the game.
Yes, but
right.
This year though, there's been a couple Kickstarters I've just not backed just because it's getting a little bit too much.
Yeah, when you spend like $500 on a game or more, like yeah.
And I want to say too, some of the trends for some of the companies are kind of tailoring to both sides of this. One that I've done some stuff for that's up is Merchants of the Dark Road. So you can get the base game for that for right around $50. If you went all in on the Kickstarter, I think it's $120, and you get all the fancy doodads and whatnot. But Elf Creek Games, what they did was they broke down all the extra baubles and bits into, I think it's like 5 or 6 different packs that you can buy. Overall, you spend a little bit more if you buy them individually, but now you can kind of tailor your game. I want to get this piece or that piece or this piece to it. Now I don't have to jump all in all at one time, and I can still upgrade certain portions of my game and have a better than base game. And I think companies that are doing that, I think it's a good middle road.
You know what? There's one thing I always feel like it is a good investment to upgrade is like in currency, like coins and game, something that you're going to be using a lot of. That one, I feel like that one's at least an easy one to like justify getting that upgraded.
Oh, I'm a sucker for coins.
Yeah, metal coins are awesome. I've even
cheaper than using Etsy to upgrade your bits.
I've even done the unspeakable. I've taken coins out of one game and added to another. So I've done that. So
that's
have
it.
You done
James,
that?
James is out.
I think I have coins. I don't know what game they belong to, and I could just throw them in the game.
It's a little different. So before we get into one of the big topics of like, and it's going to be Kickstarter and GameFound that's going to cause this most, but what is your guys' definition of overproduced? Because one person's overproduced is another person's underproduced or perfect. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be situational based. And I'll just start with myself. For myself, I look at what I feel is the intent of the game. So where did they intend to have the production quality on there? Or what production quality do I think is the best representation of the type of game it is? So if it has really nice components and those components are a main function of the game, great. But if it has this like super expensive miniature that you just set off to the side as the first player token, What? So that's my definition of overproduced. Evan, do you have a definition of overproduced?
The absolute textbook definition of overproduce
Oh,
is
here we
Simon's
go. No kidding.
Marvel Zombicide with the $600 pledge to get Galactus that really doesn't have too much purpose at all.
Yeah, not like Baby Cthulhu, which Baby Cthulhu was its own scenario. So that is why you got a baby-sized Cthulhu doll thing that was big enough for you to put the characters on. It's worth it.
But yeah, the pledge is $600. I think shipping for that level 2 was another $150 or $200. It is ridiculous. Like, they got lit up as soon as they, posted that for the Kickstarter, and their answer to that was, well,
don't buy it if you don't want it.
Do you want the game or not? And
Yeah.
then their other Kickstarters has the ridiculous shipping too.
Yeah.
And going with that, really, honestly, anything Zombicide for the last 5 years for Simon has been overproduced. It just sadly is.
I know a lot of people are fans of the Zombicide game, but I had a copy of Zombicide and I got rid of it because I didn't really. And I know I didn't have the version where they fixed the combat where you don't have to shoot your own people all the time if they're engaged. So it actually makes sniping useless. But I just still didn't think it was that great of a game.
It's an okay game, but they just beat that horse repeatedly, and then you see someone that sells like just one version of that with everything in it, and it's $2,000 for this list of everything that's in it, and it's like the specialty pack and guest artist and
See, I thought it was a good game. I didn't think it was a great game, and I know people obviously love it because they have spent bazillions of dollars getting every version of Zombicide. And I can't imagine the person that has them all has a wall of Zombicide. And you're like, what do you want to play? Well, I got Zombicide.
I took my Zombicide and used it for my miniature game.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that, and then I was like, I was going to put them in. Honestly, I was going to throw away Zombicide, which I know that would make people cringe. And I was going to put the miniatures in Dead of Winter, but they're too small. It just didn't look right. Game. So they need to be larger for Dead of Winter because they don't match with the standee. It's like you're getting attacked by little gremlins instead of zombies because they like come up to their knees. So that's the only reason the Zombicide game got passed on instead of trashed, because I would have took all the zombie miniatures out of it and thrown it away. But yeah, so people cringing for that, yeah, put it in the comments of why you hate me. So
I do want to make it clear for all the viewers that, they might think that the size of these quote unquote minis that we're talking about is just hyperbole. No, I've literally seen pictures of, particularly the Cthulhu next to a baby, and the Cthulhu was bigger than the baby.
Oh no, it is a big miniature that weighs a ton, and it's huge. And you can take the miniatures from the game, the main player miniatures, which aren't all that small, and you can place them on it. You're supposed to be able to attack the arms and the feet and the head. And I think you have to take out the head and 2 appendages to kill him or something weird. And it's just, he's gigantic. You could use it as home defense. That was also the thing. So you could get this miniature and you could bash a criminal over the head if they tried to rob you in your house. And so there's that. Also, I hate to know how many bottles of paint I would have to go through to paint that, because that would be my number one project. The instant I got it, that would be the only thing I'd be painting. Although it would probably literally be the only thing my paints collection can be used to paint. So
yeah, I don't know if you'd want to use mini paints for that anymore, because it's just
I'd probably honestly primer it, because a lot of it, he's like on a rocky shoal and there's like a pillar coming up, so it's all gray, right? So I'd probably prime it gray, then I would cover over that stuff and prime him green. So at least I don't have to do as many coats of the darker green to get him to where he needs to be. and save some paint and go through so many buckets of wash, super expensive wash on that miniature and cry every time.
At that
I
point,
run
just
through
need to
one.
use house paint.
I just looked up too. Yeah, Galactus is 2 foot tall and about 18 inches wide.
18 inches. That is stupid. Which is probably around where the baby Cthulhu is. But Cthulhu. So did anyone have any other definition of overproduced for themselves?
I think you hit it pretty well. It's just the idea
Yeah.
of superfluous minis and superfluous deluxe components that really do not add anything to the game.
Yeah.
As long as it either adds thematically or mechanically, I think it's fine.
All right. So now here's a
Yeah,
interesting.
what do you call it? For me, there's definitely a red flag.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's not necessarily a red flag. There's a flag if the game looks like it's got a lot of miniatures in it. Because whenever I see a game that looks like it's got a lot of miniatures in it, I always wonder if the miniatures are there for the miniature's sake and not for the game's sake. That requires a closer look at the game, whatever the heck it is. I also feel like I've got to address a particular issue on this case because I'm a Magic the Gathering player. So like
Yeah,
I
no one's
own
perfect.
single pieces of cardboard that are over $100. I haven't spent that much money on a single piece of cardboard, to be fair, but I own pieces of cardboard that are that much money. And strangely, I don't think too much about like, oh, I want these cards for my deck. I'm spending $300 on these 25 cards, Yeah, that's
Wait.
where they get you.
Literally is. I played for a
300?
long time.
Wait, why not 600 for a Chrome Mox or not a Chrome Mox? Mox Diamond.
See,
That's more
I
than
do
that,
have I do actually have something that's called a budget. I don't generally invest in cards that are like over $100 unless there literally is nothing else that will help me do the thing that I need to do. Fortunately, there's enough of those that are running around. And like my format that I would actually spend money on is like competitive modern, which I don't even build that many decks for, or commander, which is my commander decks are kind of on the casual level. So like I don't go for the super expensive like fast mana like Mana Vault.
Yeah. So I did the competitive modern, but I was getting up to like spending like $500 to $600 on the deck because and it's modern, so they cycle out. And then I started doing legacy, and that's when I was like, wow, that's a bad idea.
You know what?
Bad idea.
That's why I only ever did sealed deck. That way you don't have to worry about it.
Everybody's still go
playing
through.
the same.
You still go through a lot of decks. You're doing
Yeah,
sealed deck.
but I mean, thing is, though, you know what? You're only spending, it's a lot more capped, and always did it at tournaments. I did do standard for a while, I guess, but that was just like more like Friday Night Magic kind of stuff.
I like modern more because it's more stable. It lasts a little bit longer. But
yeah, I just wanted to go on record that if a game's got a lot of money in it, that's a yellow flag for me. I was like, wait, let me take a close look at this. But I think absolutely nothing about buying a piece of cardboard that's like $20, $25. Yeah.
Although
that's a nothing to me.
I will say that if you can prevent yourself from becoming addicted and being like Dan or I, Magic does have opportunities where you can spend a little bit of money and have a great experience with it. They have dual decks. You can purchase a dual decks, and they have 2 well-balanced decks that you can play with 2 people. They also have.
And I will always recommend sealed deck and/or draft as a great experience.
Yeah, but that's getting into a little bit more of the collection. You have to know more about the game. You've had to play it a lot more often. But if you just casually want to play it occasionally, I still go for the dual decks or commander decks, unmodified. Just buy a couple commander decks, have a great night, done. You don't need to spend any more money. You can get the dual decks, play a battle, then swap them out and play a different battle. You could get one of each of the 5 colors, and Just play a different one of those and never have to buy a card again. Unless you're like me or
But be,
Dan.
be careful, children, because once you dip your toe in the water, many people all of a sudden found themselves neck deep with not realizing what
Oh
happened.
no, it's like the over your head. And you're like,
You know what? It's funny you mentioned Mana Vault because I think I have 2 of them.
Mana Vault?
Like, yeah.
Oh, we know how to rob now.
You know what? That's not even the most expensive one I think that's sitting over there.
Oh no, I have a friend at work that I've played with 20 grand decks.
Oof. Yeah, no, I would not.
And
Yeah,
those were the ones
nope.
who was comfortable with me playing.
Yeah.
And they're all double sleeved and stuff. And yeah.
Yeah.
You can get a good card game for $10. I mean, Crew's only $10.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like it's your own what you want to do. So if you want to play Magic and that's the lifestyle game that you want to have, like that's a lifestyle game. So it's like Warhammer or those things. If that's what gives you enjoyment, go for it. Who cares? But if you're just looking for experiences, having less expensive things like board games or even the different miniature games outside of Warhammer, you can have unique experiences and not have to be fully invested and keep having to buy stuff and increase. But it's just whatever you like. So I'm fine with that. So there's nothing with production quality or anything, components. It's just what you like doing and what you want to spend your money on. But the topic I wanted to bring up is components. Okay, so these components, you want this game. This game is amazing, right? Well, you can get it now and pay this high shipping, or you can get the lower quality version in the future. So that is what drives a lot of Kickstarter. So Kickstarter works on, here's this thing that you have, you could get. However, if you don't get it now, you're going to get this instead. Unless you're going to pay an exorbitant amount of money after the Kickstarter to buy it off of someone that backed it. So what do you guys think about that sort of marketing thing that occurs or is actually fostered and encouraged by those type of platforms like Kickstarter and GameFound? It encourages them to make something special because they want you to back their product and help them invent this game. But they found that you want something back. So that something back they can give is special component upgrades, special components. So it's a double-edged sword. Damn.
I mean,
Yeah, I gotta jump in here because the comic book industry that we are in also kind of survives on the fear of missing out because the publishers are selling the public a story that they're invested in getting the next issue of, whether that's next week, 2 weeks from now, or a month from now, and it's not like get it now or never get it, because new books will stay on the shelf for us for close to 6 months. It will keep them in stock before we ship them away to one of the other stores for back issue processing is what happens, and then eventually they'll show up in the back issues. But there's definitely that mode of I'm waiting for the next thing. So the anticipation, they're selling the anticipation, right? And there's a lot of psychology behind that. The time that you're most excited about a game is when you're opening the box. We do lots of unboxings on the channel. Watch them all. You'll get the feel of this.
Yeah. Especially when we do Kickstarter ones and you're like, all right, hold on, I'm not done yet. Not done yet. Guess what? You're not getting if you didn't back this.
So I just wanted to toss that tidbit out there.
Okay.
I personally don't buy into the fear of missing out a heck of a lot. What do you call it? I'm usually okay with checking. I kind of want to check out a game before I am invested in it. I want to know that the gameplay mechanics, like iconography, at least works in theory. But some of these Kickstarter peoples have managed to give us playable demos of the game, like on platforms like Tabletop Simulator and Tabletopia. They're like, hey, this is a playable experience for you that we have.
We
as
played
we start
Ankh.
the Kickstarter campaign, which is great, which is absolutely fabulous when it exists.
Yeah, we played Ankh before while it was on Kickstarter, and not that would have swayed me either way because it's Eric Lang. I'm just gonna back his crap. Doesn't matter. But John had an idea before he was cut off. What was it?
I can't remember now.
That's how we do that.
Yes.
How we do that.
I will say,
Oh, I remember.
No,
I hate it.
Cut off.
Yeah, it's like you know what? I'm conflicted again because you know what? I do appreciate them trying to do something nice for people who are coming in to back it and or their first adopters. But you know what? I don't like it whenever it's something that then is just not available, except for from a secondhand market. Because
Yeah.
I mean, if they have it something I could buy later on and it might cost more, I'm fine with that because you know what? I'm then played it. It's like I like this. I want to invest in this game. Because I think doesn't the Terraforming Mars the card game Ares Expedition has those neoprene mats for the players, and I think that was only for the Kickstarter. I don't know if they ever released it after that.
They did. They did. Nothing
Okay.
Stronghold Games comes out on any Kickstarter is exclusive.
That's
as far
good
as I know, there's been 0 exclusive things. They've all been available at their booth or through other things. Even the promo cards that they put out, and they don't even have goals. They just every day they show a promo card, and that's just what you get. With Terraforming Mars Ares, you got the dual layer boards. But they sold the dual layer boards afterwards. They also sold Kickstarter edition games to public or to stores, which had the dual layer boards and which they said they wouldn't do, but they did anyway. So you could have got the Kickstarter edition. I think NDC had a Kickstarter edition one there. So you could have got that too. But yeah, I'm gonna let Evan say what he wanted to, and then I'm gonna circle back to that again real quick.
So as someone that had, probably a quarter-ish of my game collection is, all in editions. I understand why they're doing that on the Kickstarter. We're having this special piece or whatnot, or you can get all this exclusivity because we're trying to publish these games and trying to excite as many people as we can with all the baubles and whatnots in it. And as Dan said, you watch our unboxings of things and you can see the excitement, and you get all this cool stuff in there. I like it. But I think the big thing is with it is you really have to be, that all-in kind of person to really truly appreciate all of that in the get-go. And I to the counterpoint for John, I do like some of that Kickstarter exclusive. Like I want to be able to say I was there in one of the 1,000 people that backed this game, and here's my proof because I have this piece. And I've gotten into some Kickstarters that I ended up getting rid of into the secondhand market that I've never even opened because I jumped into it and I realized after the fact I'm never going to play this game. And I've had that, and I've gone after and I've gotten Kickstarter exclusive games in the same market because I missed it the first go around because one, I didn't have the funds or whatever, or, whatever might be going on at that time. But I really wanted that game, and if I'm going to get it because I'm the all-in kind of person, I want to get that. I want the exclusivities that come with it.
Yeah.
There's 2 versions of this. One of them that I think is a good practice. I can understand why. At least I can understand why it's there, and I think it's overall relatively positive. And one that's very negative. So I think it's okay for a Kickstarter to do that if it's something that they always kind of somewhat intended to have in the game, but couldn't necessarily afford unless they had certain number of copies produced. And I get that. where they okay, let's improve the quality every time we hit a certain amount. But when they are adding goals throughout the campaign and having to come up with new components to throw in, a lot of times those aren't play tested at all. Sometimes they don't even get included in the rule book. Sometimes, and you get this game
Yeah,
where
I've had that.
you have so many
Yeah.
components, you have no idea what they do. There's nothing to tell you what they do, and that I think is where it really can fail.
Or just not be good because,
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting an untested game first off that X amount of people got the prototype for, that the majority of them are paid. Like, we don't get paid for our reviews. We make a point not to have paid reviews. We just do them. But a lot of those, so you can't really trust like the bigger names doing those reviews because they're paid. So are they going to say something negative about the game? Nah, they're not. They're not going to say anything negative about the game during the campaign with a prototype of the game that they maybe had one scenario or a small portion of. So how, as a consumer, do you know that the game is any good? Like Dan said, the only way you really can is if they put it up on Tabletop Simulator and you can experience it for yourself before you buy. That way that you know that this game is a fit for you. Because even if all the reviews that go out there and all the paid reviews are out there and they're correct, it still might not be great for you. It still might not be the fit. So that's a really good thing that they do add.
You just got to find an unpaid review, and then you'll know that
like
Tapeworm
ours
is a terrible
ours
game.
are all unpaid reviews, so we don't ask for any money. So whatever we say, just whatever, just do the
James,
subscribe button. In fact, just hit subscribe, and don't worry about nothing. Just hit the subscribe button.
James, what was your opinion of Tapeworm?
That's not even a game. Like people say that as fun, like, oh, that's not even that. It was literally not a game. It's awful. It's, you have cards, you match them. If you can match all the cards that you have down with the making a tapeworm, you win. You can literally win on the first turn for the first player. The game can end. Like, you didn't even get a turn, and they just happened to be able to finish the tapeworm, and like, oh, okay. Or Oregon Trail, the card game. What is that hot crap? Good video game, horrible card game. Don't do it. Do not do it. Put it back on the shelf. Leave it. Move on. And literally anything else. Except for tapeworm. Also skip that one. But so getting into that Kickstarter thing where they're having that stuff on there, and I think they really need to push it, because I know that all the Terraforming Mars variants from Stronghold Games did really well. However, I won't back anymore. The reason I don't back them anymore is unless something's changed and I've missed it, there's no real Kickstarter exclusives through Stronghold Games, or at least there hasn't been. So I have been finding that I can get it significantly cheaper with everything that was on the Kickstarter after the Kickstarter. So why would I just want to be the first person to get a copy? Which isn't also not always true, because if I go to a convention, it could be there before you get your copy. And I have gotten everything, and I didn't pay shipping. So because Stronghold Games does that, I have no incentive to back anything from them. I can't be in the minority on this because shipping's expensive. I know a lot of people just want the game, so there's enough that it funds, and it's like they make $1 million or whatever. But they have to be missing out on a good chunk because of that. I know it's nice that you can get everything secondary mark, or not even secondary mark. You can buy everything after the Kickstarter campaign, that you make sure that you like it and stuff. But I do think there is a real incentive not do that. To say, hey, the 600 people that backed us, you're only having 600 copies of this miniature. That will now cost $1 bazillion on half. And I'm not even sure. I know, like, through, well, I mean, anything like the comments on Kickstarter, those people are horrible people, some of them. but I do hear the comments a lot where they're like they're going to be selling the excess from the Kickstarter of all the Kickstarter miniatures at conventions. They won't be on their website to purchase. They won't be on Amazon to get a third party person to back it. So, I mean, what do you think of that statement?
Well, I was going to have a variation kind of that. Where I get more frustrated with is when a company goes, we are going to have this whatever as a convention exclusive. So instead of, making it like a, on a broad front, Kickstarter or whatever, or through our website, you can get this. But now we have to specialize it to the 200 people that stop at our booth at this convention are only going to get those.
Super hate that. Or I mean, you don't have the ability to go to that convention, so now you've just missed out.
Yep.
Yeah.
He made him so angry he jumped off the screen.
My chair is completely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so hard. You see some cool like promos and stuff like that that go out there, and then they're almost impossible to buy them on the secondary market because you'll see them go up 3 days after the convention for a ridiculous amount of money, and they stay at that for a long time. And what if you're someone that wants everything, you're stuck. I just hate that, we're going to make the people have to go to certain places to get these things. It doesn't sit well with me.
I don't know. I mean, how is that really much different though than, you just happen to have heard about the Kickstarter and been able to support that in time to have gotten the exclusive, hey, I heard about it and I did the Kickstarter, and I was one of the first 600 people to sign up for it. Too bad for, the rest of you.
Yeah, like you show up at a convention and you have the Kickstarter version of a game that Evan hasn't heard of yet, but you already have it. It's done. And you're like showing this really cool things. You have all these really cool miniatures that are thematic. It draws you right in. And you're like, and Evan's like, I really want this game. And you're like, yeah, you can have the sad one over there that's sad in a corner looking all sad. How does that make you feel?
I mean, it's. I feel like in some cases even worse than that. Like campaign's done, games are shipped, people are starting to play it. People like me discover it because I am not intimately connected with the Kickstarter market. I'm only intimately connected with this retail market over here.
Yeah,
and I kind of want that game either for myself or my shelf, and it's just not available.
Yeah, and you don't have the funds to pay 200% more than what it was on Kickstarter.
Yep.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's just not available through any channels whatsoever. Like the channels that you might be able to find it through is like direct through the publisher's website. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, there is one convention bonus that I got that I really liked. It was for
Evan, he's the guy. He's the guy.
I'm the guy that's going to the conventions and getting all the goodies.
Yeah.
It was Overlords of Infamy. They had like one of their cards. It was like a promo that you got, and it was like, hey, and the entire card is lampooning the whole idea of going to the convention, getting a custom, promo. It's because and like the title of it, because like all like the game is like you have all these different evil jobs that you're doing, which are kind of like add an extra Monday. Is kind of the humor for it.
Or so like the Rodney Smith Canadian Mountie for Dead of Winter.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have it, just send it to me.
I don't think if I did, I would.
Oh,
but yeah, this one here was like it was, hey, you went to a convention, you got a promo card, lorded over everyone else. That's like the title of it.
Oh, really? That's even better.
I think, my thing with it is, for the for the larger Kickstarters, I mean, you have a really good shot of seeing it between the advertising between, on BGG, on Facebook, on Instagram, and a bunch of different places. So, the window to get into that and having the chance is fairly large. Plus you have late pledging and all sorts of stuff like that versus getting something at a convention, which is 9 times out of 10 not publicly said, like, we're going to have this card at this convention for you to get. And that's kind of such a lower key that you almost have to luck into some of those.
Yeah. And like, it gets into another thing too. Like, when you do these Kickstarters, you're paying a lot of money to get everything if you wanted it. So you're paying a ton of money to get everything. And like Onk, which I love my Kickstarter version. It's awesome. I don't even want to play the non-Kickstarter version. I'll be like, get your stuff out of here. I'm going to bring mine. Drive home, bring it back and play it. Knock theirs off the table. But there's like VGG and conventions and such. They're not really well known. Like, not a lot of people go to VGG. Not a lot of people are in the board game community. And their first foray into board game could be Kickstarter. And then when they find out, like, oh, I really love this game, I know I got everything for it, and they're like, no, you didn't get this super awesome promo that was in this convention that you've never heard of in your entire life. Yeah. With Onk, it was comic books, and I was not packing the dumb comic book Kickstarter. And I was like, they were like, it's going to retail, and I was going to pick it up on retail, and no one had it. Two cards in it.
But counterpoint here, the things that you get at conventions, the materials and components you get there, they're typically free. You just go to the booth and they give it to you. Meanwhile, you have to pay all this extra money for the Kickstarter ones. That's why the convention ones are better than
you sort of have to have the game to have the card do you any good.
Not always. I got a lot of them, but
you're like, I just made my own game. I just got convention cards galore, and I'm like, we're gonna play like a Millennial Blade style game with this.
I don't want to have to plan, 6 stops at different conventions hoping that I'm going to get, promo cards for all my games.
I don't know. When my kids move out, I really do want to do that. Like, go to all the conventions and do all the stops, talk to all the people, like all the promo cards for games I don't have, and just like throw them out like it's money or something.
Yeah, I got some Flex ones if you guys want in there. I think I have Doctor Who or promos or like some other randoms.
We were having a Flux tournament at CosCon or SipCon. And NDC had this giant box of promo cards, like giant. There's so many promos and like just stupid amount of stuff in there. And they're like $5. And I was like, here you go. I got it. And Jason's like, oh, these are really cool. We're doing his wife was doing the Flux tournament and I was like, here you go. I don't want them. It was for the Flux tournament anyway. Just do whatever you want with them. Make them disappear. I don't want 50 Christmas Flux cards ever. So they were super happy. It was great. They gave them out. Some of them, whatever. Who cares? But boy,
it's Flux.
It's Flux. Flux is a game that I will play, but I will never ask to play it any point. And I have an alternative. I will try to push that.
Nope. I don't even think I can bring myself to play Flex anymore. Nope.
Just a reminder, this conversation is all about components. Right?
Yes.
Oh, no, it's the components. The Flux component cards are mediocre quality cards.
We didn't completely derail.
Just partially derail. I just started sort of. They're okay. They really don't hold up. The promo cards, you can see they're the thin cardboard. It's the same. If you really care, just buy another deck of Flux. Don't even buy sleeves. The sleeves cost more than a complete deck of Flux. So you could literally just rebuy Flux. Just buy another copy. Why not? You could just move to some different theme. You could have went from
pick an IP
zombies to you destroyed that one and go to SpongeBob. About the same. Now each of them do have different mixes of stuff, but Flux is Flux. Except for Math Flux. That's an abomination. And if you see it, destroy it on sight. It is awful.
Okay, so do we actually have anything else to touch on for our
I think-
actual
I think my rant is
I think
conversation about
yeah,
components?
darn you, John, for bringing up Flux. And yeah, any other horrible games? Anyone like Tapeworm? What is it? What is this?
I wanted
what
to
is
get
this?
back to like the reason why I think there's been this change, and I think a lot of it is to do with the perception of board gaming and how it's viewed as by the by us and by the world as a whole. Whereas in the classic games where you had lots of cubes and lots of little chits, it was the idea like when I was growing up, a lot of the board games came from thrift stores where you would, it'd be something that somebody was sat in somebody's attic for a few years, maybe missing a couple components, but because it's just basic cubes, you get a couple games, you can kind of swap out the components, and it's not a big deal. But I think the big change has been it's actually people are taking the hobby more seriously. People are actually starting to collect and actually value games and taking care of them. And that's why the components having quality has improved to match that perceived value.
Well, yeah, and you can see it as like a slow, and it's been a rapid growth recently. So you're looking at the 1940s, 1920s, or whatever. You got all those games. They're just luck-based games, even up to modern times. Or if you go to Walmart or Target, the majority of them are all just junk luck-based games where you're not playing a game, you're having an activity with other people who may or may not be incredibly invested in winning a game that is complete luck, which they're just crazy people. To late 90s, really, honestly, late 90s, where you had the birth of the Euros getting very, very popular, and you got into strategy. Now, I know there was chip-based games before that, like your war games and stuff, but it really didn't explode as much. You did have your audience, and it was viable as a platform to sell stuff on, but it was really those like Settlers of Catan and some of the earlier, my mind's going blank, a lot of the earlier
Ticket to
Euros
Ride.
after that, Ticket to Ride, and those type of games that really got people into, hey, I can use actual strategy, and using a proper strategy, I'm more likely to win this game instead of being lucky at rolling dice. So that got people more into, hey, I want strategy. And I think it's evolved from that. Those still exist, and those are still a huge portion of the board gaming market. But I think now it's more thematic. Like the big budget games, the that really sell, and the majority of the market is more into strategic, thematic games where you don't have a complete luck-based element. You have a lot of strategy, but it's heavy on theme. It's trying to sell you an immersive experience as a game, as an experience that you get to have, share with other people. I think that's, in my opinion, that's how it's been progressing.
Yeah, I'm gonna chime in here. I think we're on the right path here. I don't know if it's true. Somebody might have to do research and to back me up on this, but like I heard that basically over the last there's been more proliferation in terms of like game design and like number of titles in the last, I don't know, 7 to 8 years than there has been in the last like 100 years before that, or something obscene like that.
That's not a bad statement to make, because pre-90s there was nothing. Nothing. Literally nothing. There was war games, but there's really nothing.
I mean, there was kind of that little brief stint in the 70s, I think, of where they were doing something.
Like Gusher and other games like that. Yeah.
Yeah. There was like I think I remember like some card dealer game that one of my exes had found. It was like you were just like doing a car dealership, and
it was like a short bubble that burst really quick. But yeah. Scotland Yard.
In terms of like number of titles, the creativity behind the game design, like new mechanics being introduced. If you look at like all these things that we're used to now and their origins, you'll find a lot of them are relatively recent.
Yeah, I think that looks a lot into the trends, like before 2010, even maybe you could go a little earlier. Before then, it was more viable just to make some silly game that looked nice, that didn't really have anything in it. You had some dice, you moved a pawn around the board, it's just roll and move. It was just a theme of another game that was 60 to 90 years old. At a certain point, the board game industry started to become a viable industry that would pull in a lot of money, that even like got movie level income in. So at that point, you got you actually have professional designers. There was some, some outliers in the past, which was one or two like professional designers from the 90s to 2000s, but you have a huge community of professional designers that just design games. That's crazy. And because of that, you got an iteration of, hey, all these really smart people making these games found out cool mechanics. Now I can build off of those. And then games just keep getting better and better. Exactly what Dan said. Just an explosion of talent, an explosion of popularity in the last 7-8 years. I would probably say maybe 12 it got started, but yeah. Whatever. I'll agree with whatever anyone has data on for that. So that's probably true. But you could see the cycle coming up from the late 90s to then. But it exploded, and you have all these people with professional careers. You have rock star gamers like Eric M. Lang. And you have like okay designers like Alexander Pfister,
You're unmuted.
You're muted.
Well, just look at the recent interview we did with Johnny Pack. Like, the way he talked about it, it is very, very thematic first coming into the game, because he talked about like designing Fistful of Meeples. It's like, well, it's Mancala in its core, but if we design it with the theme first, and then we're able to do this and this and this and this,
build the mechanics around the theme.
Mm-hmm. And you can see that being the trend of how people were doing game design now. And I think it's 100% what you said, James. It's just theme is what's driving this industry now,
which is cool. Okay, I like the trend that's going. So if no one has anything else to throw out, we're going to do a silly game. I hope you guys have been thinking about it the entire time. So you have not. So I'll start. So basically, you have to think of what type of component you would be, and we would determine who would had the best idea. So mine is I'm going to be an etched wooden die. So it pretty much embodies me. It's incredibly good to look at. Really like sort of a trophy thing that you put up on the shelf, and you're like, oh my gosh, look at that. But you don't actually use it because it rolls like rubbish and it's not useful in any way. So that's basically what I'm saying is I'm here for the looks. You're welcome. And I'm a wooden die. So, right?
That's the game we're playing.
That's the game we're playing. So my arrogance level's high. But also, gotta top that. So if you can't top that. So anyone has what their perfect component is, we'll try to beat it. It's a wooden etched die that has really cool looking. It's like what you want to play in a pirate game, but you never want to roll it.
Because James is always going to roll crap, right?
It doesn't matter what it is. It'll be like, you need to roll a 6 with 20 dice. I'm like, well, we're screwed. These are 6-sided dice.
And James's die would have all 6s except for 1-1. That's the side that always comes up.
Yep, pretty much. Yep, that's how that works. Slightly better than Peter because mine will happen once in a blue moon. I'll make it. But anyway, Peter's not here, so he can't defend himself. So we'll just go around the table here and just do it. Evan, what component would embody you? Soul and body. Now, you will be judged harshly on this.
I would like to take a pass.
Oh, there's no pass in the component thing. But I will come back to you because I'm a nice person. Because I have no reason to do that. But Dan, what do you got?
All right. So if I were a component, I would definitely choose to be embodied as a card. I feel cards
like
are
a super
extremely,
expensive magic card.
not necessarily a magic card, just a card, I feel like cards are extremely versatile in gaming as a whole. Like they can contain a lot of information on them. And like games that include cards, often the cards are the focus of the game. And like cards also have an interesting physicality to them. Like you can change a card's meaning based on where it is on the board, whether or not it's straight or crooked. You can turn it face up or face down and whatnot.
So you're not going to be that blank card that comes in games just in case you lose a card and you just write on it with
No, I'm definitely not going to be the blank card that you can fill in to make your own content. I always feel bad for those cards. They go into like the bottom of the box and they
I don't even know why they ship them. I'm like, I'm not playing with this junk. People will be like, this is a merchant.
I
I'm
am
like,
definitely I am definitely want to be a card that sees play. I mean,
like
cards
a 51st state card,
like
multi-purpose.
What do you call it? You can sort them into different decks, give them different backs. Sometimes once or twice I've seen different backs shuffled into one singular deck because then the back is supposed to be a clue about what sort of thing you might see when you flip into the next one, right?
Yeah.
It's just so cool. So I want to be cool like a card.
You're gonna be a cool card. You're the cool kid card.
I'm a cool kid card. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Nathan, what can I know? Hello.
No pawn.
Oh, the best
I think
of pawns.
I think I have to go with the classic wooden cube. I mean, I'm not. It's not visually that interesting. It's not visually interesting. It's not great to look at, but it's highly functional, and it can do just about anything.
And it add nothing to the theme, no immersion. You're just like, I'm utilitarian. I'm a brown cube. You know I'm a brown cube. You know you need to collect me and spend me for something.
But I can be anything
Secretly,
or do anything.
See, I feel like there's a better, slightly better option that's even more integral to a game.
Ooh, than the cube.
Than the cube. And that is the well-designed player board with the nice little notches for the cubes.
Like the terraforming one, Mars one that's not dual layer?
Yes. Well, no, the dual layer one. No, not that one. What?
Almost got you.
Almost got. No, not that trash. No, I'm talking about like the well one that has this nice and colorful. It gives you the theme. It gives you, everything else. And it's just,
layered so nothing gets knocked off.
And it's every time you pick it up, you're like, oh, this is great. I love this thing. And you know what? That's me. It's every time you pick me up.
Like every time you pick me up on a car, I'm like, oh man, that's a good dual layered board.
Yep.
So Evan, you're screwed.
Oh no.
You got it. You got it. Good,
I got it. I am the well-designed game insert.
Okay.
While a lot of people
non-functional but good looking.
Well, a lot of people underappreciate that insert to hold all the components for the game. The well-designed one, such as what is in Moonrakers, holds everything in one place, supports everything, keeps and binds all things together, and brings harmony to all
the universe. But no, it's true that the Moonrakers one is an amazing feat of an insert. It's like crazy. Like you get the same type of insert with like Lords of Waterdeep, but when you turn Lords of Waterdeep on its side, like you don't want to look in the box anymore. But but they measured everything down to the millimeters and everything. So when you put all the cards in, you put all the dice in, you put all the coins in, and you put the player boards on, it fits in the grooves and it perfectly fits together. But not only that, some people forget that you have a lid. So if they don't have it match perfectly with the lid, when you turn it, everything dumps out. They did that. It matches perfectly with the lid. I can flip the box upside down. I've done that actually to look at the back, and then I flipped it back and everything's exactly where it belongs. Nothing moved anywhere. So, and they did the same thing with Mythics and Mythic Mischief. And the game I'm sending Nathan.
I am there for everyone. Super supportive.
But not required.
In your
not required.
Not required. Not necessary.
And also forgotten about.
But nice to have around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so you can't vote for yourself.
So now we have to vote for somebody that's not yourself. Who
Yeah.
do you think matches their chosen component the best?
Right, and we're all professionals or something like that. I don't know.
Something like that.
It's a
yeah.
lie. So you think of who is not you,
Mhm.
who you think's the best. Don't change it when we go around, and just so when I call you, just say who, and then we'll tally it up, and that person wins absolutely nothing. So I'll start
Bragging rights.
Bragging
Bragging
rights.
rights. Always bragging rights.
So I'll start with Dan. Who do you think had the best component that embodied them? I mean,
I'm actually go with Evan's organizer.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
that's the one that I'm gonna pick.
How about you, Nathan?
I also have to go with Evans organizer.
What is
he
nepotism in this world?
He's
Like,
completely
seriously,
unnecessary, but
do
very
we vote
supportive
not
and
to do
helpful.
this? Like, seriously?
I am so unnecessary.
I have this card that I got from John Company second edition that lets me do nepotism. So, you know.
Yep. So, John, who is your vote?
I mean, since I can't vote for myself, I'm gonna have to go for Evan.
Oh my gosh, Evan's already won at this point. So Evan has won absolutely nothing. It is a wonderful
Bragging rights.
prize.
Bragging rights.
Bragging rights. But we're going to finish this. To see who's second loser. I guess the second place. Yeah, well, you know what I
First
mean.
loser.
First loser. Evan. Who do you pick?
I will say I will have to go with Dan.
Oh my gosh. The utilitarian multi-purpose card?
Card?
Oh, the jack of all trades, master of none, but also extremely useful.
Hey, look at your collection of games. How many cards are there?
Now, I will say that out of spite, I probably wouldn't have picked Evan, but he did mention Moonrakers. That sort of clinched it for me. So, unfortunately, I Evan.
Wow.
Had to be
All
the
right,
professional.
well,
I was like, I
unnecessary.
could have
The
changed
organizer
it,
it is,
but
I guess.
no, it
Yeah.
was Evan. He had mentioned Moonrakers, and he had me. He had me right there. At that point, I was like all in. Circle.
There you go, everyone. I am unnecessary.
But oh, nice to have around. All right, so that was our episode on components. I hope you enjoyed that. If you like our stuff, just please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Comment in the comment section below anything you'd like us to talk about in the future, or any subjects that you want to bring up about this show or anything else. But thank you for watching.